What's up, you wonderful people? It's Nima here, and today I hope I don't come off as too disjointed or cluttered. I'm definitely gonna show you guys like some early parts of Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. I also wanted to tell you guys about the tornado I survived through. As you know, I survived. Really, I just got lucky. But the more important thing that I really wanted to talk about was a phone charger that destroyed two switches and a phone, and just telling you guys a little bit about it. Also, I will be putting a picture up, should be here in this video, but I definitely wanted to just go through some of that stuff as well as a little bit of a channel update. All of that again while you're probably already watching it, but the video, and it's all within the first hour or so of Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. I picked it up on Friday, haven't really gotten a chance to play it. I've been playing another game for a review that I'm going to be doing Tuesday, but I can tell you this, very heavy on tutorial, especially I guess in the early part where you would expect it, but just, it's really laid on thick. In fact, there was moments where we were just trying to skip it and was like, are you sure you want to skip it? This is the last time I'm going to ask, but it's not rocket science, it's pretty simple stuff. Oh, and while I'm talking about it, for any of you collectors out there, I would really think about picking this one up physically. I know I did. And the only reason I really did was because I knew I was going to get the game, but Nintendo had apparently canceled a ton of pre-orders, which usually means they don't have a huge stock, and you wonder if they're getting ready to produce more Switch 2 games or more Switch 2 hardware or whatever, or for whatever reason, doesn't really matter, but the point is, it does seem like this might be a game that might be harder to find later on, or not making as many copies, but I don't know, I can't say for sure. That was enough to make me get it though. So the first thing I do want to talk about though is I got a Type-C charger about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit more, and really it was my wife that got it. And I haven't been using it for my Switch. Typically I use the Nintendo power cord because I just trust it more, and so does my son. But what happened was we were watching a movie one night and he used this cord to charge his Switch. Well, the next day, his Switch didn't charge anymore. It was kind of weird. Didn't really put two and two together because his Switch was really old. I ended up changing out the battery, and it helped a little bit, but it still would just go from like 30% to 9%. Like, it was just quick drops, and the only thing I could think of was like, I think the Switch's alternator's out. I know they don't have alternators, but I had no idea what was wrong. Essentially, we're at a point where I was like, you know what? You've had this thing since basically day one. You need an OLED. I'll just buy you an OLED. It was no big deal, right? And moved on from that. Didn't think about it. Didn't think anything of it except for it's probably old, battery's old, outdated, all that. Well, then probably a month or two down the road, my Switch died. Now, my Switch is only 4 years old and it's an OLED. At the time, they were really hard to get. I actually had to buy it off the black market and meet some dude at a weird gas station. But the point is I thought that's a little early for this thing to be dying, especially with the problems it was having, which again, just wouldn't charge. And it got to a point where it was already low, so I couldn't really keep it on to keep investigating what might be the problem. And I really had no idea what to do with it. And again, didn't put two and two together. And like I was saying before, I don't typically use different chargers to charge it, but that one charger, this red charger we bought from Amazon, I know that I use it to charge it. And to be clear, typically, yes, I use the Nintendo charger, but honestly, I never had any weird problems. And so I've definitely charged everything from Switch Lites to the OG Switch to my OLED Switch, which is different Type-C chargers. As long as it was working fine, no issue, and never had a problem, by the way. I mean, you're taking tons of different, like, vacations and trips and whatever, so you gotta be a little bit flexible. You can't plug your Nintendo Switch charger into the car, so, you know, and if there's no issues, what do you expect? But again, didn't really put two and two together, just assumed that, okay, look, it's a $350, $400 piece of electronic equipment. It lasted 4 years. It's a little on the short end, but I guess I can't really complain. I've definitely put my time in with it, so either way, I guess I get it. Maybe that's just the price you pay for playing thousands and thousands of hours on it. Okay, fair enough. Well, about a week ago, in fact, last Sunday, my phone started to die. And this time, though, I got a weird message on my phone. I actually had it plugged into that charging cord, that Type-C charging cord. Well, my phone started freaking out, started beeping like crazy, and there was a message that said there is moisture detected in the port. You need to unplug this quickly as possible. So I did. And then I tried to use a different charger because my phone was almost dead. Wouldn't charge. Nothing was charging. Checked my wife's phone. Her phone was charging. So obviously there's something going on here. And she told me, oh yeah, I had that message pop up before on my phone. I just reset it and it worked. So I did that. Didn't matter. Didn't work. Nothing was charging this thing. So we went out of town, drove about 30-45 minutes to a phone store, talked to the guy. He looked at it and he was like, yeah, this thing's definitely damaged. It looks like it may be overheated. And he kind of explained to me that there are some of these charging cords that they'll get really hot even if you can't tell. But it's that metal part that's inside your phone or your switch or whatever. That's the part that can get really, really hot, and when it does, it can cause a lot of problems. So I had to get a new phone. Well, lo and behold, I didn't really like any of those phones, and let me be clear, I know the Switch 2 is coming out within a year. I don't want to waste any more money on that kind of electronics, so I had the brilliant idea of telling my wife, hey, why don't you get a new phone, and then I'll take your old phone. You don't like it. So sure enough, that worked out well for her. Well, she wanted to transfer all of her data from her old phone to her new phone. That took about an hour, but in that time, there was a couple things that happened. For one, both phones were being just drained of battery, but more so, there was a storm picking up just to the west of us. And honestly, it wasn't like a top priority. It was something I saw. It looked like it could be a bad thunderstorm, but we've been through those many times. I've lived in this area for my entire life and have never been caught in a tornado. I've seen many tornadoes. I've seen a lot of those, but I was usually chasing them. I was on the other side of it, not caught in it, so I didn't even think about it. Well, we did get her phone and got everything back, but everything, like I said, was dying. By the time we got home, she had almost no battery life on both of her phones, her new phone and then her old phone, which is now my phone. And the reason why that's noteworthy is because we were trying to actually look at our weather apps, but we didn't want to waste our battery life, just left them plugged in. Well, a thunderstorm warning, big siren came on, and I went outside to go look at and see what it looked like outside. Well, I can tell you this, super, super muggy weather, like just gross. And then a little hint of cold breeze. I immediately knew this is not good. So I cleared everything I could. I prepared clothes for my daughter and my son. I was like, okay, even myself, I usually wear flip-flops, but I was like, now I gotta get shoes on. And about the time that I was ready, the tornado sirens went off. We grabbed everything that we thought we needed, and this is no lie, I actually grabbed my Switch. But I had other reasons. It wasn't just because I'm obsessed with it and it's my baby. It is really new, and I didn't want to have to replace another one, but I actually got it just to distract the kids, because I figured once we're down there, if there's something that does happen, it would be nice to have something to keep them distracted. Well, we're trying to look at the Doppler, we're trying to access weather apps. I mean, the internet is just basically gone, and as was, our phones were on their last legs. Now, it was around 7 o'clock, which is fairly light around here. Well, it went basically pitch black. It was so dark, and just like in the movies, the lights flickered a couple times, and then they just went out, and all you could hear was, it sounded like a train coming at our house. It was so loud, and yet then you could just hear snap, 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 snap. These loud cracks and pops coming from outside. I had my daughter right in front of me, and then my son under my right arm, and my wife under my left arm, trying to hold everybody and protect them the way I could. But I'll be honest, I was so scared I could barely talk. I don't know if you've ever been that scared, but I was terrified. And the worst thing was, I was terrified because of the kids. I was like, oh man, what happens if something happens to us and they're trapped down here? Just all those things that are going through your head. Well, around the time that my wife was like, hey, I think we should move. We are really too close to one side of the house where we have a lot of trees and stuff like that. So we moved to the other side. Well, by that time, I think it was already gone. It was already over it. I know that probably wasn't a great reference for you, but it was probably within 3 minutes, something like that. And I was weary that we could have been in the eye of the storm, but I was at that point able to get a phone signal, so I called my dad, who lives in the same town about, a few miles north of us, and he said he was on his porch, He was like, that was the lowest cloud. He's like, I saw a funnel cloud right by where you guys live. He was like, that was crazy. He's like, I almost got blown off the porch. And my dad is an elderly gentleman who is pretty much disabled, has a hard time walking, but yet, yeah, there he was, basically braving out a tornado on the porch. That is Kansas, by the way. If you're ever curious what kind of mentality Kansas is, that's it right there. But luckily, he was there because I was able to contact him and talk to him because I couldn't see anything on weather reports or nothing. Like, we just had no signal, no nothing. And from what he said, that it was basically over. Yeah, there were still crazy amounts of lightning going on and rain and all of that, but the big push was over. At least that's what he thought, and that's what I thought. So I decided, well, I'm gonna go brave it. I'm gonna go see what's going on. And part of this was because we were getting a message from my sister who said she was coming over to our house to hide in the basement, and I realized our doors were locked. So I went to go unlock them and everything. That all ended up being a miscommunication, by the way. So if I would have gotten hit by like the tail end of that storm, that would have been on her. Anyway, no, everything was pretty much over besides the lightning, and there was still like a very bad thunderstorm going on. But as far as like tornadic activity, it was over. Went outside, all the snaps and cracks and all that, those were trees. Big, huge trees that were basically sideways now. A lot of our stuff was damaged in ways I've never seen damage be done. And the thing that really stuck out to me, though, was just how quick it was. Had we not been prepared and ready to go down there, it would have been too late. And luckily, we're those that are semi-preppers. Like, we had water, blankets, there's a safe downstairs that has money, a gun, phone, the power banks and whatever. Although, note on that, the power banks don't last as long as you think they do. It was like 5 years ago that we set that whole thing up, and those power banks barely got our phones to a point where we weren't just completely worried they were going to die. But it was a weak amount of battery left in them, which, I mean, I guess 5 years, you're asking a lot. But again, you know, we were lucky that we had all that stuff already, you know, food, water, all that down there, as well as, you know, just some of the necessities, candles, first aid kit, all of that stuff that you know you should have somewhere, especially if you live in this area. But it was just insane. And the crazy thing about it was, later on that night, my son and I got bored. My daughter, wife went to sleep, and we typically, we live in what you would consider the poor Mexican area of town. Me and my son, both basically our devices were dead, and we didn't have a way to charge them. We're just sitting there basically with a flashlight, and so we decided to hop in the car, charge our devices, and drive around a little bit. What really surprised me, though, was the north side of town, which is like the Ritchie area. It looked fine. Like, yeah, they had some damage, but those people really didn't suffer nearly the size of mine. In fact, a lot of their homes had power, you know, minimal tree damage. And it's just like thinking about opportunities, thinking about how things happen to certain people. You know, those people probably went to work the next day. Meanwhile, my neighbors were stuck for a good couple days before they could even get out of their driveways, half of them. And I don't know, just made me think about that. But yeah, crazy situation, crazy story. Yeah, we survived. Everything's good. Thank you again for everyone who gave all our well wishes. In fact, yesterday I was gonna make a video, but we were expecting another big round of storms, and we just got lucky from where we're at. Down where like Trick lives, tons and tons of stuff, bad stuff. But he's good. I talked to him. I will also say something else I'm going to talk about in a future video was the EliteInstitute.net. At some point during the night of the tornadoes, my phone did establish a connection, but it was so slow I couldn't load anything. And it continued to be slow for days after. But the one thing I could access was the different websites. I just had to let them load for a while. And one that I was on was Adam Miller's EliteInstitute.net. And it kind of reminded me of like being a kid again and looking at GamePro and some of those awesome video game magazines. Is that we're just reading reviews, and honestly, it kept me sane. So, you know, shout out to Adam. Great website. Seriously, really good reads on there if you're ever interested in just reading game reviews. But if you hung with me this long, I appreciate you. I love you. And by the way, Tuesday, I'll be dropping a review for a game called Capes. Capes is awesome game. I have really enjoyed it. I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to see the reaction that everyone else has to it. I know there's been a few other companies that have released some reviews on it, but I don't know. I like to do it closer to launch because I think that's when people are looking more for the games. I don't know. I could be wrong, but anyway, please comment, tell me your thoughts on all this craziness. And again, be wary of that charger, any charger that you use for your electronic devices, because you just have no idea what you're actually using and how can it affect your prized items. Anyway, though, again, love you guys. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.